Hi, I'm Jett, playing H.O.R.S.E here on Full Tilt Poker, picking up where I left off on a previous session. I'd been sitting out, and so coming back in, this game was shorthanded, so I was just planning on waiting till it got back to my big blind and posting the big. While I've been waiting, the game has filled up, so it wouldn't be the worst move in the world here to post behind the button, but we'll see how if these guys come in, I might go ahead and just post here. I actually grew up playing mixed games. I mean, when I started playing poker in Arizona, it was my job as a prop player was to go in and start like a 20-40 dealer's choice game, and so that was basically what I did every day. And so we played lots of Raz and lots of Omaha, and so I've always, if I'm going to play live, I've always just been more comfortable playing mix. Here we posted for the first hand at Omaha, and we actually picked up a real, a decent starting hand here. I was the big blind. I just went ahead and checked it so we could, check out the flop, and I flopped about as bad as possible for that starting hand. So because I didn't put a raise in before the flop, I don't feel bad about just letting it go here. As it turns out, the turn card was really big for my hand. I had ace deuce of spades here. I would have made nut, but that's the way it goes. If the flop had come different, we would have scooped a big pot there. But all right, looks like this Omaha session's going to have a little bit more action than last time. This second hand here, I'm in the small blind. I've got ace deuce 3 king rainbow. This is a great starting hand. I sure wish the ace was suited, but you can't have everything here. So they. If I was on the button, I'd be, wow. Here I flop nut low. Like I said, I wish my ace was suited. Right now, basically all I have is nut low and a pair of threes. Now I've got nut low and kings up. I'm gonna see if I can check raise this guy. He didn't go for it, so I've got kings and threes and nut low here. In that situation, you can feel very comfortable betting. It's going to take a real monster hand to scoop you, or I mean to quarter you. In that case, the only thing you're worried about is getting quartered. Somebody has to have ace deuce and a better high, which is in a heads up situation. Worrying about that is kind of like worrying about monsters under the bed. So we just that was the last hand of Omaha. I guess I wasn't paying that much attention. I guess I thought we just started Omaha, but now we just started Raz. So. Once again, you're trying to make the best 5-card low, and as far as starting hands go, you're just looking for 3 cards under 7, sometimes 3 cards under 8. If you like playing in these mixed games, and you're sitting at home and you get distracted. Especially when it goes, I mean, obviously when it switches from Omaha to Raz, it's easy to tell that something happened. But when it switches from Raz to stud, you're still getting 3 cards, and unless you're paying attention to who's bringing it in, you can get it's easy to play the wrong game. So on full tilt, it says right in the middle of the screen what the game is you're playing, and also if you look up at the top of the your window, it'll say there what the game is also. So especially when it goes from stud to stud 8 or better, that's where a lot of people miss it, because you're still having the low card bringing it in. So it's always a good idea to keep an eye on where you are in the 10 hands. My favorite game in the H.O.R.S.E is probably stud high low. I feel that a lot of people play that game very poorly. I mean, and a lot of people, probably the Omaha high low and the stud high low are the games that people, the people that have, grown up playing stud or just are just new to poker and are used to playing Hold'em, they play those games the worst. So that's kind of where I feel like the most of the edge is in those games. Sometimes you'll get people that know how to play all the other games, but they just don't know how to play Raz at all, and they just they do really silly things, for the whole session. And I mean, that's great. If they don't understand the certain concepts of when they're on a free roll, or when they're when they're just absolutely drawing dead, and they're still putting money in. I mean, there's no better way to make money in poker than to have a situation where you're playing against somebody that doesn't really understand the game. So, but Raz, in general, once you learn Raz, you can become a decent Raz player relatively quickly, where Omaha high-low or stud high-low actually takes a long time to figure out and to learn to play well. So. All right, in Raz, the best starting hand is 1, 2, 3. That's what I have here. My luck with 1, 2, 3 is not great. Even though the 4 raises here, and I've obviously got the best hand because I have the best starting hand, I'm going to go ahead and call. Hopefully I can catch something good on 4th Street here. The 6 went ahead and re-raised. I mean, most people would just go ahead and pound it up as hard as they can here. I'm just going to wait and it kind of disguises my hand a little bit, and I'm just kind of waiting to catch one more good card and then go to war with them, which is what happened here. In this situation, the guy that made it 2 bets here definitely has a 9 here. I've made a made hand, but I've got I've got 2 cards to come, and I have a 7 draw, so I'm going to go ahead and gamble with them. That's a bad card for me. I could go ahead and bluff it here, but I'm going to go ahead and make the nuts. In this situation, it's great. No matter what he has in the hole here, he can't beat my hand, so I can bet with impunity there. It's one of the few games. Raz is one of the few games where you can know for certain, in some situations, 100% that you have the best hand. I mean, usually in stud, the only way that can ever happen is if you have quads or something like that. But in Raz, I mean, in that hand, I made a 7-4, 3-deuce ace, and based on his board, the best he could make was a 8-6. If he had perfect in the hole, the best he could do is 8-6. So, I can go ahead and, if he wanted to go to war with me there, obviously, you can just put in as many as you want. All right, this hand here, I've got pocket 8s with the 10 up. No other cards higher than a 10, so I'm gonna go ahead and raise it. I'll be perfectly happy just to pick it up there. We are playing stud high now. This hand here, ace king 10, it's kind of on the border of whether you want to play it or not. 2 people had jacks up, which really raises the chances that I'll just be able to pick it up by raising on 3rd Street here. When the only other high cards that are up are duplicated like that, it lessens the chance that they actually have a pair, so it makes it a lot easier to steal. In stud, especially if you're early to act on 3rd Street, you never really want to get out of line with hands that don't have, three big cards or pairs or 3 cards working together. Anytime you're the last, you're towards the end of the action and you've got the biggest card left, it's not a bad idea just to go ahead and try to steal. Just to pick up the antes and the bring in. A lot of people that play stud a lot will, if they've got the highest card up on 3rd Street, they're going to raise regardless. And it's really good. One thing the notes on Full Tilt are good for is if you find someone that always, 100% of the time, if they've got the highest card up, they're raising. Make a note of that so that you can play your playable hands accordingly. If someone's raising, if they have a queen up and you've got a pair of jacks, but they raise every time they have the high card up, it's very important to make a note of that so you can, you don't feel pressured to fold the best hand when you don't have to. Here in this situation, the low card brought in with a deuce. I've got a deuce here. If it gets around to this queen, the king raised. if it had gotten around to the queen, this queen's going to raise 95% of the time, just because it's just situations come up in stud where you're basically obligated to try to pick up the pot. There's enough money in the antes and the low card out there that you just there's just situations where you're supposed to try to steal, where in the other stud games stealing it doesn't come into play as much. All right, here I got split aces with an 8. Obviously it's a very premium starting hand in stud high. If someone wants to go to war with me at this point, I'm going to put in as many bets as they'll allow me to. As it was, I just picked up the antes, which is fine. Yeah, here this hand I've got Jack 10-8, which is kind of, if I'm around in back with no raises, I might try to steal it. But in this case, with the up cards, I've got 2 jacks and 2 10s, which really cuts down on me being able to make anything. And now I've got a king behind me, so I'm just going to let this one go. In stud, sometimes it is necessary to limp fold. If you, for instance, have split jacks and and there's a king and 2 aces behind you, and you limp and it gets raised and re-raised. I mean, it's a pretty safe spot just to let it go with minimal damage. There's no real reason to put in good money after bad. I tend to play a little bit more conservative than some people, but I just I put in a lot of hours and I'm trying to minimize my risk. So I look to just try to avoid big confrontations where I don't know I have the best hand. So we just switched to stud high low. So the starting hands we're looking for now are going to be a little bit different. At the World Series, I have 2 final tables in mixed games. In 2007, I got 3rd place in the H.O.R.S.E event, and I think it was probably 2004 or so. I made the final table in, I think they called it H.O.R.S.E at that time, but it's the same 4 games. Same as H.O.R.S.E except for the RAS, no RAS. And I got 3rd last year, and I think I got 6th, a few years back. So it's funny if you go and you look at the games that I've made final tables at the World Series. There's no limit hold'em. It's all the other games. I mean, I have final tables in Omaha, high low, and stud, and mix, and I guess that's it. But when I go card dead in the mixed games, it's the good thing is that the most you have to wait is 10 hands, and then you get to play a different game. So I mean, it kind of helps relieve some of the boredom. By playing, especially in the stud games, by playing really tight, you just kind of avoid getting stuck a lot where you feel like you have to chase the money or whatever. I mean, I'm pretty good at just sticking with my starting hand requirements and just never getting out of line, and that really just keeps me from feeling like I have to play more hands than I should be. All right, here we're playing stud high low. I've got deuce 3-7 with the deuce 7 of spades in the hole. It's this is a decent starting hand. You'd actually want the 7 to be a 6, which would really help you with making straights, but this is definitely a playable hand. A 10 went ahead and made it 8. This is chances are this is someone that's just trying to play split 10s, and and hopefully we can punish them for it here. All right, that's about the perfect card for me to catch here. I'm gonna go ahead and raise him. All right, so this is the exact situation we were talking about earlier, where I'm on a total free roll, given the fact that he probably has a pair. So my low is safe no matter what. Now I'm just trying to make some kind of a high hand, and I basically can't lose. I can't lose for low, and I had a shot where I could catch a spade or a 5 on the river to scoop him. Almost definitely. As it turns out, I only made a pair of 3s, but he actually started with aces, which is one of the few times that you would play with a 10 up. I kind of didn't give him enough credit and thought he was going to have have split tens there, but he had aces, where he did exactly the right thing to raise with that. My hand, like on Fifth and Sixth Street, there is the whole thing with the high-low games is you're looking for just free rolls where you can't lose. You can't lose. You want to put in as much money as you can, because at the very worst you're going to get your half back. And if you do happen to get lucky and catch a card, you're going to scoop the whole thing. In that situation, I made a 7 low in 5 cards, and based on his board, he was never, he can't beat a 7. He's not going to be able to beat a 7. So, I'm on a complete free roll, and then I caught a 4th spade on 6th Street, which makes it, it gives me, a lot more outs where I now I can catch a 5 or a spade, and I scoop the whole pot. And obviously he has no cards that he can catch to scoop. So, it's in stud high low, you just want to keep putting yourself in those situations where you're free rolling on them over and over again, and then eventually you'll hit a couple, and that's where you make your the big profit in stud high low. You just want to avoid being in his spot where they're free rolling on you, although it's not always possible to avoid, but you just want to be the one free rolling, not the one getting free rolled on. So in his situation with the aces, I mean, he didn't do anything wrong. I happened to catch a really good card on 4th Street and 5th Street. By no fault of his own, he's pretty much stuck in there with aces. If I had missed on 4th Street, he's going to win the pot there. And it's just one of those situations where aces are like the only big pair that you can really get kind of stuck into stud high low. It's definitely better when you have aces to have another low card with it, because then you do have some backdoor low draws. If he had started with ace 7, then I have to be more worried about my low, because he can still catch good and catch up. But with ace 10, he's in a lot of trouble against a hand that made a low in 5. So here in this situation, these guys went 4 bets on 3rd Street. One had a 4 and one had a jack. The jack, as it turns out, had pocket kings, and he's just he was heads up with a guy that had 3 low cards. But in this situation, exactly what we were talking about happened, where the guy is just trying to make a low, and he backs into a wheel. Or not a wheel, but a 7 high straight, and so he scooped the guy that had the kings. Sometimes it's not the worst idea in the world to play a big pair like pocket kings like that, if you're going to be heads up against someone that you'd think is just going low. But it can backfire easily, like it did there. We're now playing Hold'em. I like it better than no limit Hold'em. I really prefer all the limit games. I've been playing poker since the early 90s. So when I started playing, there was, you couldn't find a no limit game anywhere. So I mean, all the Hold'em that I grew up playing, basically, or probably the first 20 tournaments I ever won were limit Hold'em. So I'm very comfortable playing limit. Here I've got pocket 6s in middle position. Everybody else got out, so I'm going to go ahead and open for a raise. And here I'll be real happy if I pick it up before the flop, but I got called by the button. So we're going to make one continuation bet here. And now we're going to give it up, because this is not a good board for 2 6s. So on a flop like that, you're kind of just hoping that they've got a pocket pair that they'll fold. King Jack, relatively early position. I'm going to go ahead and just fold it. It's just kind of a trouble hand there. If I was on the button with it, I'd raise, but. The thing with limit is that position is just so important, because you're never going to be able to put enough pressure on someone to force them out with a good hand. So by not playing Queen Jack under the gun or King Jack in middle position, you kind of just you avoid putting yourself in positions where you're going to be taking the worst of it. This last session went well. Picked up a couple real big hands that panned out for me. Got in one situation in the Raz game where basically made the nuts on the guy on the river, and that pot with a couple others really helped get me over the hump today.